Have you ever heard of a cursed videotape? It was midnight, and I had just finished typing up a new ghost story. As I was about to turn things off and go to sleep, I received that DM. It was from a friend of mine, a hollow raider who's always off collecting strange and uncanny things. So, I wasn't too surprised when she sent me such an odd question. I didn't think much of it then, and went to bed for the night. Then, 7 days later, at midnight, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No name, no return address. I tore it open and found a videotape. No label, but nothing unusual. At first, I figured it was merely a prank from some urban legend forum, until I found some scrawled handwriting on the edge of the envelope. A chill crawled up my spine as I saw 2 words: invitation letter. And that was when it hit me. I had heard an urban legend about a cursed videotape. I thought back to my friend's message, her unusually serious tone, and how I hadn't heard back from her for 7 days. The details lined up almost too perfectly with the legend, and that's when the fear started to spread inside me. So I hurried and started playing the tape. As the clock struck midnight, the static gradually cleared. A girl in an ornate white dress appeared on the screen, sitting at a piano. As the spotlight came on, her fingers began to move slowly across the keys. She played a delicate melody, tinged with sorrow, as if telling an unknown story. I was instantly drawn in by the beautiful music, and for a moment, I forgot the legend about the curse. But then, her playing became faster, sharper. Her figure seemed to be trembling almost violently with the melody. The sweet notes twisted into something piercing, almost painful to hear. Then suddenly, the whole screen flashed, and the image froze on her hands. She was holding out an invitation letter with an address written on it. But oddly enough, the address pointed deep into the hollow, to some long-abandoned street. I don't know if it was the music pulling me, or just curiosity. But in the dead quiet of that night, I found myself drifting alone toward that strange, haunted place inside the hollow. At the end of the street, there was an old abandoned theater. It was enveloped by fog and miasmic vines that curled around it like snakes. I inched closer and pushed open the door that had been left ajar. From deep inside, I heard the soft sound of a piano. I stepped in and followed the sound down a dark, crumbling hallway. A faint light gradually became brighter ahead, spilling through the cracks of the performance hall's doors. As I pushed them open, the chandelier came tumbling down in a blinding crash. The seats were full, but the packed audience sat silently like wax statues. On the stage, I saw her, that girl in the white dress, playing the same song I heard on the tape. The spotlight, the crystal-like stage, it was all the same. It was a perfect copy of everything on the tape. And that's when I knew the rumors weren't just some urban legend. It was real. An ether anomaly. As I walked closer, I could see the girl more clearly. She had a dark blue ether crystal that reflected in the spotlight. It was clear as glass, covering her hands and catching every flicker of light. With each note she played and every breath she took, the cracks in the crystal shimmered, emitting a cold ether energy. The air rippled with distorted phantoms from the crystal. That's when I began to realize those people in the audience, sitting there like stiff wax figures, were all innocent, ordinary citizens. People drawn here by that invitation on the tape. But before I could think any further, the music changed. The melody flared, wild and violent, and in an instant, a strong ether vortex pulled me into the past. The rotten ceiling above me twisted into gilded carvings, and on that vast, empty stage was the girl in white, playing the same melody over and over again, alone. As she rehearsed her song, I looked in the shadows and saw a young man in a Defense Force uniform, tucked away in a corner. Sketchbook in hand, he watched her quietly, painting her face. I slowly walked closer, and thanks to his work, I could finally see her clearly. Her soft, serene expression. The music softened, and the picture around me shifted too. Now, under moonlight pouring across the stage, the girl and the boy were sitting back to back. He kept painting, the brush dancing over the page as he depicted her beautiful profile. And then, she handed him an envelope. It was an invitation for her very first performance here in this magnificent hall. Her only wish was that he'd be her very first audience. But then the melody spiraled, and the heartwarming scene tore apart like paper. On the stage, the curtains rose and the show began. The girl sat ready at the piano, fingers hovering above the keys. Her face turned to the audience. The hall was nearly empty. Her eyes scanned the room, searching the rows desperately. However, he never came. She hesitated for a brief moment. Then her fingers pressed the keys. The very first note sounded, and the chandelier above shattered like a shower of glass. Screams resounded, echoing from outside the theater. The ground shook, and the walls groaned. The doors burst open with people flooding in, shouting, "The hollow is about to swallow this place!" The whole hall filled with panicked yelling. But the girl on the stage didn't stop. Instead, she played even louder. Every note grew heavier, almost alive. Every chord sounded like desperation, clinging, waiting for someone. In this symphony of destruction, a Defense Force soldier came running against the crowd, straight toward the hall. Behind him came the sound of the hollow, surging with howling monsters. The threatening roars from the corridor rolled through the hall, shaking its foundation. By the time he was only a few steps from the hall, ethereals had started rushing in, hunting for the sound of the piano. As the monsters were about to storm in, he raised his bloody hands and slammed the door shut without hesitation. With nothing but his weary, broken body between the doors and the tide of ethereals, he held them back from the golden hall. As the doors thundered shut, the gilded ceiling gave way and came crashing down. Shards of raining plaster drowned out his final cries. Then, I saw the sketchbook he had dropped. I recognized him, that young man whom the girl had invited to her performance. And suddenly, I understood the cursed tapes that appeared at midnight and the piano that lured people into the hollow. It was her will, etched into the space before the hollow swallowed everything. As long as the music went on, he would always be on his way. I stepped forward and grabbed the sketchbook lying in the dust. But the moment I touched it, cold ether energy pulled me back into the present. And outside doors, death itself was pressing in. Ethereals drawn by the presence of living creatures were clawing against the rotting doors, hungry, relentless. The doors splintered apart, and the girl on stage suddenly paused, her head twisted around, her eyes locked on the door. And there it was, an enormous ethereal, covered in broken gold plaster, draped in what was left of a Defense Force uniform. It stormed toward the stage, the ground rumbling beneath it, and I stood there, frozen in place. Some unseen force bound me where I stood. The ethereal's claws reached for me, and the sketchbook in my hand was ripped free, the floating pages flipping violently, until they stopped on her gentle, smiling portrait. Time froze. The girl at the piano seemed to be moved by something. She walked calmly toward the sketchbook. Pale, piercing light bled from her, cutting through the monsters that were pouring in. Only the massive ethereal with the uniform pushed forward against the light. The plaster covering its torso broke under that radiant power, and the monster's body showed through, riddled with holes. It held that same stance, still pushing, running forward. His claws and spikes crumbled away. It reached out, holding the finished sketch toward her. She raised her right hand in turn and stopped it where his heart should have been, and played a note, like a final rest in the music. The long-awaited reunion had its ending. In that moment, a silent ripple of ether spread out from her fingertips. The broken shape of the young man and the girl's faint figure both dissolved into stardust as the ether energy faded. And from that dust, a fissure in the hollow opened up, quietly sprawling through the ruins. I hurried to wake the innocent survivors, and together we ran toward the fissure and escaped that collapsing, twisted theater. A cycle that had been frozen for too long had ended at last. Much later, one midnight, I found a long-forgotten letter tucked away in my desk. Inside the envelope was an unlabeled videotape. Even though I still had doubts about the curse, I played it anyway. Only this time, there was no shrill piano, no twisted static. Instead, the girl looked peaceful with a calm expression. I was lost in her solo. The melody was pure and deep, like a soul speaking to itself. It was full of ache and longing. It made me think, aren't we all stuck in the cracks of time, waiting for promises that cross life and death in all its forms, to meet again in the stories that we keep rewriting for each other? Sometimes I wonder, Proxy, if one day I get lost again in the ruins of memory, will you still reach for my hand and lead me out of that abyss? You will, won't you?